How are you feeling, Psychopaths? Welcome to the Psych Ward. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my experience in getting the hardest trophy in Tetris Effect Connected, and potentially the hardest trophy I've ever achieved overall. Spin Artist. This trophy requires the player to rotate pieces across all modes a total of 1 million times. Keep in mind, before committing myself to purely this trophy, I have achieved quite literally everything else in the game, from playing and replaying all modes, double S rank on all modes, journey mode, all the 3 difficulties of journey, and I even achieved a top 5 marathon score at one point, keeping my PlayStation on for a whole week in the process. Although, it has fallen much lower than 5th since I achieved said score. Across all of these achievements, as well as all of my time enjoying the game, from release date to the day I committed myself to this trophy, I'd gathered a total of 150 hours in the game. Having said all of this, you would expect that surely the trophy couldn't be that hard, as rotations are all but essential to play the game, and are not at all difficult. However, at the end of 150 hours, I checked my in-game stats to discover how many more rotations I would need to 100% one of my favorite games. Turns out, I only had a measly 480,000 rotations. That meant that I would have to either casually play another 150 hours of game that I was essentially done with, or commit somewhere around 50 hours of just spamming one button. I didn't like the idea of either of these options, nor did I want to purchase a controller that would allow spamming buttons with a singular press. So, the solution I found was to simply PlayStation share my game to my PC, create a free virtual controller, and create a keyboard macro bound to said controller that would achieve hyper inputs without any purchases or even human interaction necessary. Said macro is what for the rest of the video you will be watching in the background. Even with creating the macro, there were a couple adjustments I had to make, and I had to end a game every once in a while to make sure the trophy didn't pop while I was away from my computer. The setup was quite simple. I just had to play normally until I achieved some zone meter, which, if you don't know, is a new mechanic for this version of Tetris, where pieces don't fall until you soft or hard drop, and lines cleared move to the bottom and all delete at once after the timer runs out and you lock the last piece. However, if I never soft drop and just rotate a single piece at the top, then the game will never top out, and the macro can endlessly run, until I next check on it, essentially. I did worry of my PlayStation potentially crashing, or even the PlayStation Share disconnecting, which it tended to do. So I limited the game to show no user interface, and all graphics were turned to the lowest setting. So, although very unexciting, my macro proved extremely effective. Yes, this does mean that the latter half of this trophy is technically cheated, in the most layman terms. But, I wanted to share just how absurd expecting this trophy to be done authentically really is, because as a more than average enjoyer of Tetris, I had to resort to this macro if I wanted to basically not hate the game afterward, which I still came close to. Not to mention that despite the easier method of the macro, it still took an astonishing 8 whole hours to make up for the missing rotations, not accounting for the 2 or so hours it took for me to troubleshoot how to make the virtual controller work in the first place. As well as during these 8 hours, the piece was being rotated at a rate faster than I was able to achieve at my fastest mashing, with multiple buttons mapped to rotations. Nevertheless, just a couple minutes before I decided to check the progress for the final time, the 100% trophy popped, and a 5-year journey came to an end. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and aren't too upset about the fact that I cheated a little bit. If you take anything away from my process, I hope it's that Tetris Effect Connected is an amazing game, and if you haven't played it yet, I highly suggest you do so. Other than that, I've been GuardianPsycho. Stay sane, my friends.